So hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming to today's episode of The Outlet, Lunch and Learn with SheTek's Extraordinary Women. Today's episode is the 16th in our ongoing webinar series designed to help boost your career, inspire you, and get you moving forward in the tech industry. Thank you so much to anyone that's here today from our previous SheTek events, and welcome to anybody who's here from the first time. I'm Meg Vierick, Program Coordinator and Community Manager at SheTek, and I will be hosting you today. We are recording today's webinar and we'll be posting that recording in the SheTek community as soon as it's available. It'll be in the resources section. It's also where you'll find the past episodes of the outlet, all our other recordings. You can log in and check them out whenever you'd like to add some inspiration or boost your career during your day. Right now, everyone is muted by default, and we'll have live Q&A with Heather at the end of today's session. You'll see standard Zoom functions on your screen, either at the bottom or on the top if you're on your phone. Ask questions that anyone can see and reply to in the chat function, or ask private questions using the Q&A function. We'll let you know that your questions are received and get your questions answered at the end of the session. You can also use the chat box to chat, share your thoughts, experiences, and feedback with us. Today's webinar is brought to you by SheTek Inc., a nonprofit organization registered in New Jersey dedicated to increasing the number of women in the tech staffing pipeline, women and allies in the tech staffing pipeline. SheTek's patron sponsor is PAM10, an award-winning global IT services and staffing organization based in Princeton, New Jersey. PAM10 conceptualizes innovative software products and solutions for its clients and oversees them from development to implementation. PAM10 also connects exceptional talent to organizations around the world. You can find out more about PAM10 at pam10.com. Today's episode of The Outlet is again titled The Outlet 16, Intro to QA Testing and Test Automation Careers. We are lucky to have an extraordinary woman joining us today, Heather Reilly, Director of Integrated Quality Systems and Platform Lead of Quality Analytics at Janssen, Inc. Heather Reilly is an experienced Director of Quality with a demonstrated history of working in the pharmaceuticals industry. She currently holds the position of Director, Integrated Quality Systems, Platform Lead Quality Analytics at Janssen, Inc. In this role, Heather leads the portion of the Quality Analytics Tools and Technology Group that is focused on those quality management systems, QMS platforms, that support key QMS processes for Janssen research and development. We are so glad you could join us on the outlet today, Heather. I'm going to hand it over to you now so we can get started.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Meg. Happy to be with all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Happy to be talking. Looking forward to some questions and answers as well. So I'm just going to jump in and get started. How's that? So Meg, if you can take us to the next little slide would be great. So I thought I'd start talking about disruption, right? So as all of us know, our entire world, especially the past 2 years, has all been about disruption, right? Disruption to our supply chain. So I did a little recon and looked into some stuff. So Gartner, who is a leading industry group that sort of looks to see where things are going for the future. And they were looking into 2021 predictions. And they had three themes that they sort of bucketed everything into: customer centricity, geographical independence, and operational resiliency. So overarching these trends, they're all about digital first, being innovative, accelerating things, especially in this environment with COVID that we're entering and still continue to now have to understand how to live with COVID in our lives. And then the organizations around and across industries, financial, retail, everywhere is sort of being talked and said, hey, what are we going to do? How can we pivot ourselves? How can we accelerate our independence? How can we accelerate our transformation using technology and automation? So it's really something that I think resonates with any field that you're in and is transformative to any industry you're going to go to. So any industry, education, retail, anything, these jobs for testing will be in all of these industries. So I'm really excited to sort of jumping into what are those sort of commonalities that will be across different industries and how many jobs are out there that are there for people to use and how flexible they are to the individual as well. So if we can just move on to the next slide. Great. So testing professionals re-imaged. So I personally have been part of testing since dating myself into the year Y2K, you know, what was going to happen to computer systems when the year 2000 came along. So it's been quite a long time. And the testing professionals have always existed. But with this technology disruption, we had to reimagine them, right? So now what does it look like? Next slide, Meg, if you don't mind. Great, thank you. So what are the few things that I've looked at was thinking about how is it changed, right? The how is now, how can we use automation to our benefit, right? Not having a lot of humans doing the testing, but how can we automate these things, right? The testing, the foundation of why we do testing is still the same. So I think in order to have jobs in these industries, you need to understand the why we're doing the testing, right? And then the who is leading into that automation point of view, right? We're augmenting humans. So we don't want to keep paying humans to do this work. When robots have become so popular and so more advanced, they could be automated to do that testing for us. So it frees the human up then to think more innovatively, right? And where we can make sure that we're testing these things to make sure that trying to make them fail, right? We're trying to make sure that they're robust and repeatable. So that's where the human comes in, and it allows us more time to do that. So next slide, Meg. So QA testing and test automation. So next slide, Meg, thanks. So what are the benefits? Because I think that's also another interesting piece that I think is really important. And businesses are starting to capitalize on this, right? By spending some time to use the automation, there's absolutely benefits, right? So you might have to spend a little money up front and a little more time to automate the testing. But in the long run, it will absolutely be a huge cost savings to an organization. And that's what people are starting to really capitalize on. You actually could move your delivery of your finished good a lot faster, right? Because now a robot can work 24/7, right? Automation can be done 24/7 while the human is sleeping. All these automated testings are going on. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll see if it's successful or not. So think about that kind of as a fast development and delivery. Again, those immediate results, right? Again, a robot can do something so much faster than a human can do, right? And you'll get those immediate results or failures, right? Because you want to see if you're breaking your systems as well. Higher accuracy, right? Because that it eliminates that human error that always is there because we are faulty at our own demise. Ensuring consistency, right? Because they're always going to do this repetitively the same way, right? They don't know any other way to do it. Increase productivity, right? Again, because now we can do more things faster, cheaper, better, and the reusability, right? So if you write those test cases and automate them as you start to make changes to your system, this can be reused, right? So it's got pieces that you can reuse and you don't have to start back at the beginning again. So there's great benefits to the automated testing. And I think companies are starting to realize that now, and that's that new job market that's open. So it's the testing, but now it's not doing the testing as a human, but how can you make sure you're taking that and automating those testings? So that's where that sweet spot is starting to come in the industry. So next slide, Meg. So what does it take to be a testing professional? So I really tried to think about this a little bit of, what does it look like in today's world, right? So you need to still understand the understanding and foundation of testing, right? It's that why. Why are we doing testing, right? So there's still some foundational things that people need to understand. So there's the software testing life cycle and system development life cycle. Those are some acronyms that you should be familiar with, and you can easily use Google to sort of upskill yourself in them. But it's also a matter of how do you write test scripts so that they could be automated, right? And easily being able to do that, some experiences with SQL scripting and understanding what an API is, that would be helpful, but you don't need to be an expert in those fields either, right? Just a good understanding of that, right? A good understanding, again, of those business requirements. You don't need that on day one, but you need to know how to learn. You need to know how to communicate. You need to know how to listen actively to the business partners to then be able to take what they're looking for and making sure that you're creating the test scripts that will make sure it delivers what the business is looking for. So it really just takes those active listening skills. again, that knowledge about how softwares are developed. There's a couple different ways, and the new way people are talking is about agile, but I just talk about agile as being flexible, right? So instead of waiting for this perfect nirvana thing to be released into the market, they do little pieces along the way. So if you can imagine a big puzzle piece, they're going to release little pieces along the way, and at some point they'll have a big puzzle, but they're going to release little pieces along the way. So it just makes us go faster, cheaper, better, and that's where that reusability of these test cases can also come into play, right? Because you want to make sure as you build the next piece, you're not breaking the first piece. Again, that excellent written and oral communication and skills, they become very imperative, and they've always been there. But again, it's that ability for people to be able to actively listen, take that, translate it into written communication, and making sure that you're filling that gap and void between what the business is looking for and how it was built with the technology and the IT people. Definitely need to be a team player. That goes without saying, right? And then just highly organized. We sort of talked before we kick this off that, you need to have those good organizational skills, right? And, making sure that you're delivering things on when people expected them to be there. So great. Next slide, Meg. All right, great. And then again, what kind of skills? And I just wanted to talk about, I sort of separated them into two different areas, right? There's the technology piece, right? And I've been doing a little research within my organization, within Johnson & Johnson, and even just outside in industry, right? So that's where I've started to see there's the SQL scripting, right? Web services, Cucumber. I don't personally know them, but I've been learning that a lot of groups and companies have been using off-the-shelf kind of automations to actually create the test cases in there to actually run against the systems. Java, of course, is always a big one, and Jira is a platform across different organizations they use, and that's used just to sort of organize their work and tasks as they go along and build things. But again, on that other side, there's always that human and the foundational skills. They've always been there. And a lot of jobs ask for these, right? Good communication skills, organization, problem solving, right? Analytical skills. Those are very transferable in multitude of different areas. And those are those skills that you can easily start to learn and leverage. And most of people already have them. You just didn't realize you did. And you just need to frame them out to people on what you've done in order to bring those skills to the table. And when you get a position, how you can add value quickly. Those are the areas by which you want to make sure you focus on as well. And then, of course, the development, the software development lifecycle, and the other one was that system testing lifecycle. So again, those are those few things that we want to make sure that we bring in. So hopefully that resonates with people that we're humans and we're multidimensional, but if you try to put them into two buckets, this would help to give you a little bit of a roadmap as to maybe where you need to start working on how you can upskill yourself to be one of those testing professionals. And next one, Meg. Great. So I found this to be an interesting thing, especially since SheTek is mostly focused on getting women into more of a technology role. So I did a little understanding on men versus women. And if there's any men on, hopefully they're not offended by this, but it's just some differences on how we think and how we approach certain things. So next slide, Meg. So the biggest thing that I understood, and it sort of made sense once I started to look at it, is we have some cognitive differences between both men and women, right? Or how you define yourself or how you resonate with, right? But our cognitive differences is what actually helps us a little bit, right? So it's not saying that one is better than the other. It's just a matter of it's different, right? It's not that one gender is more clever or smarter than the other. It's just that we achieve the same results, but we approach them differently. And sometimes that's an asset, right? Sometimes you want people to approach things differently. And so that's what's important. So our women's superpowers are we adopt to environments quicker than men do, right? So that's just a thing that happens. And I've seen it across industries, and definitely seen it into work, right? We definitely, as women, adopt to different environments pretty quickly and acclimate ourselves, right? We use more words to explain ourselves, describe things. Men are a little bit more practical with their verbal communication. Maybe it's a matter of, women talk a lot, right? So I think with that, it helps us to be very good communicators, right? We have to be very clear with our children or clear with other people about what we're asking for them to do, right? And making sure that they understand that, right? And describing things along the way, right? We prefer to discuss a lot of various subjects during conversations, right? I think we've always sort of done that. We're context changing. Oh, I'm going to go over here now. I'm going to go over here now. If you listen sometimes to those conversations, it could be across like 50 different topics very quickly, right? Where sometimes men are more focused and being more go down deeper into one kind of topic, where maybe we'll go across different various topics pretty quickly. But those are just some of our superpowers. It's, again, not saying one's right or wrong. It's just a different way of approaches. And sometimes you need to understand that so that way you could use and capitalize on that. So what can you bring to the table differently than somebody else isn't, right? So these are those things that I hope maybe you can also start to think about, those superpowers that you have and how you can use them. So great. Next slide, Meg. So what are some of the benefits to testing, right? To the testing jobs that are out there? And believe me, Meg and I were talking about how many jobs are out there when I was doing a little bit of a research, not just much in my own company, but right, just what's out there in industry. Went to Google, looked at Indeed, and I was astonished by the amount of testing jobs that were out there, right? But most of them were asking for, again, those similar benefits, the similar attributes we were looking for. But some of the other things I thought was very interesting, some of the benefits to you as a person, you could upskill yourself pretty quickly. They weren't looking for people that understood their business, right? They'll have people that understand their business. You just need to be able to communicate and active listen and take what they're saying. They want something to be done a certain way, and all you're doing is taking that and making a test case to make sure that the system will perform as that business partner asked for it to be, right? Coding is not required. You don't need to know R code. Like, you don't need to know how to really write in Java if you really don't have that at the start, right? It's not required in most of these job postings that I've seen. There's a big need and demand for these people. I was very overwhelmed with the amount of jobs that I saw, ones that were located right around my home and ones that were further away. So it definitely is something that there is a need out there for this population of people. Most of the jobs I saw, they said could be done remotely, right? And the schedule is flexible, right? So again, you're creating test cases that will be automatically executed, right? So again, that bot's going to work, at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you need to write your automation. Maybe it needs to be written by the end of the week, but you have flexibility in when you'll do it. So, and being remote, I mean, nowadays with COVID, I know a lot of people were remote, but there's a lot of companies going back to the office, but it was very prominent in their posting that they said it's okay for you to be remote. So I think that's a great benefit on how you can do that work-life balance. Having that flexibility is very imperative. And like I've even said before, many businesses, right? So you don't have to work in healthcare or finance or education or wherever. I mean, this skill can be leveraged across all of those different perspectives and different functions and segments and any kind of business area. So I thought that was also a very interesting thing. So some of the things I did go in, it was August 25th when I went in to look at some of this data, and there was 1,366 flexible QA testing jobs that were, and 400 of them were available just in New Jersey, so I just wanted to sort of give you that time frame out there that I was looking at. When I was also looking at Gartner, they were telling me that in April 2021, there was over 400,000 quality assurance testing jobs that were being employed in the United States. That's a huge number, right? I'm thinking that's a huge number. And then they even gave me more statistics on that, which 42% of that 400,000 testing positions were filled by women. So that's really cool. You know what I mean? Like I've been a part of, I'll just say, an IT framework for many years. And sometimes I'm the only woman sitting around the table when I first started. It's amazing to see more women at the table, more people bringing different perspectives, different views, different approaches to things. Again, you might all get to the same end of the day, but you're just taking a different approach. And then out of those women that had those positions, the average age of them was 43. So I was also amazed by that as well. It wasn't a younger population or an elder population, but it was 40s. Like that was really just amazing to me to see some of those statistics when I started to do and researched into all of this. So hopefully that sort of puts you at ease. No matter where you are, I think there's great benefits to these testing jobs and a large need. And I think that's where, again, everybody's trying to seek a flexible job, security with making sure you always have a job to be at. So excellent. Next slide, Meg. So I just wanted to sort of just summarize because I always feel like I go to these events and I feel like it's always great to sort of come back to what did I tell you, right? So what we talked about was the move to automation. So testing isn't being done by humans any longer. It's being done by automation, right? Whether it be a robotic process automation or using Java or whatever these all look like. There's systems right off the shelf that are being used to actually do this testing. We went over the benefits, right? Again, remote schedule flexibility, a high volume of jobs, so there's a great need of them. A quick learning path for you to be there. You don't need to know the business, and it goes across different businesses. So it's just not locking you into, I know nothing about finance, but you could get a job at a financial institution doing testing. That's possible. And let's not forget our women's superpowers, right? The ability to communicate very clearly, the ability to change context, right? Those quick learning or adapting to a new environment pretty quickly. We definitely have some superpowers, and you just need to know what yours are and make sure that you, during those interview process, you definitely highlight them. What value do you bring to the table, and why should they hire you over somebody else? That's always a little question that sometimes is out there. So make sure you're prepared and make sure you know what your superpower is, because I'm sure you have one. So excellent. Meg. Okay, great. I think, Meg, this is yours, or I think maybe open to questions, maybe?
Yes, I've come back on cam. So we do have 2 questions right now. And
perfect.
Past experience that usually once you start asking the questions, we've got a bunch more flowing in.
We will.
But we had one question from one of our most committed members that comes to a lot of our different events, very interested in upskilling in their tech career. She says that she already has a technical background with QA testing. Would taking a 2-week course to upskill with the skills needed in automation testing then be sufficient to apply for a new role? Or could you maybe speak anything about that, like taking 2-week courses or something like that as an option?
Yeah, I don't even know. I'll first say I'm always hesitant for more people to just take more trainings, right? Because a company hires people knowing that they're going to have to train them on something, right? So, and I don't think if there's probably not one particular software out there that's doing automated testing, right? So you could pick one and then you're applying for a position and that's not what the company's using, right? They might be using a different software, right? So I really feel like I don't think I would invest in that. I think I would apply for jobs and then just tell them that you're a quick learner and you're more than welcome and more than willing to take additional classes if need be to be upskilled very quickly. I, from a hiring perspective, would rather someone say that to me rather than sort of coming in with this laundry list of I've taken this training, because each organization is going to have their own platform of choice, and they know that they'll need to teach people things, right? So if you already have that foundation on testing, That's the biggest thing, right? And you have these other superpowers. You know how to communicate, you know the purpose of this, all of those kind of things. And the only piece they would have to fill in for you is how to use their particular software of choice. So that would be my suggestion to you. I mean, you could, but you could be going after something that one company, that's not the software that they choose to use. So hopefully that answers your question.
How about just in general, because we kind of had a couple questions come in at once that are very similar.
Perfect.
Where would you tell someone to start trying to get into this field? Or are there ideal majors that these companies look for, like maybe business majors or something like that?
Yeah, I have to say that I even have people in my own organization, because even just part of our daily thing, we have to do testing, right? I have people that were math majors, that were education math majors. I have people that were business majors. Like I'm not really sure a major is a specific thing unless you're just out of college. If you're more of I'll say a seasoned professional, it's been a while since you've been out of school, there's not one. It's more just, do you have the ability to learn, right? Can you continually learn? Are you keeping up with industry standards? Can you speak about the newer software that was out there? Can you know what things you bring to the table? I communicate well. I'm a team player. I've organized, things in the past, those kind of things. Can you bring relevancy to a particular project you've been doing recently, right? Those are the type of things that during interviews, that's what people want to see. Me, from my own education background, I'm a chemistry major. Most people are shocked to even know that I'm a chemistry major, right? So sometimes it's not so much what you've majored in that helps you along the way. If, however, you've just graduated, right, that would be like a computer science major. A business major is probably more that would help you if you were going into the financial institutions, right? Or a more of a testing a business tool, right, that maybe does, supply chain, those kind of things, planning, budgeting, things like that. But again, you don't need to know those because they already have those people there. We call them subject matter professionals, right? They're already going to tell you what they want these systems to do for them. You're just there to absorb that information and make sure that you make sure that the system is doing what they've asked it to do. So it's really just that communication back and forth, and just being familiar with the different softwares out there. That's what I would say. I would just become familiar with those. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in one or the other, just familiar with them and the principles by which are needed, Anything else, Meg?
We do have another question from our audience, but I just wanted to invite, because Chaya is on the line with us.
Yeah.
Right, if Chaya wanted to share anything, because I know that she's talked before about like majors and things like that, about how you can move about in tech with maybe a different major or things like that. Chaya, did you have anything that you might want to add?
Oh, first of all, thanks, Meg. First of all, thank you, Heather, for this beautiful session. I'm sure you can speak for hours, and
I could
condense this whole thing. One thing I would say, testing field is something I always saw as a gateway into technology field. I have seen many people who are just getting into technology from different fields and new to technology field, getting trained in this testing space can get some opportunities. And that's actually a very easy, I think it's an easy and a meaningful gateway into the technology field. Now, once someone gets in there are advantages in this field. One is you gain business knowledge. For a developer, it's very rare for them to get that exposure and gain business knowledge, whereas being a tester, I think one will have to understand the business applicability of the solution. So they will have to write test scripts, and they also will be testing the application of the system for business purposes. So they have to gain the business knowledge. That's one big advantage. And the second thing is you don't need to know coding. I mean, you just have to get there and learn and follow certain steps and test it. And obviously, if you want to enhance your skill sets and you want to be a little bit more efficient in your job in the QA space, you got to learn different tools, as Heather mentioned about the automation tools, and figure out what are the other tools which are available, and also learn to write small data scripts, database scripts like SQL scripts and things like that. Because as a tester, I've always seen the way the companies look for, even though they call it as a QA tester role, they expect some kind of background in terms of understanding the data, how the system works with the data, how is the data populated on the screen, is it coming right or wrong. So you just need to know a few small scripts, and these days the tools are so automated, you don't even need to write a line of code, right? So learning the tools is the key as well. And this is something you can be, as Heather mentioned earlier, can be executed remotely. This is a fantastic role for women who want to work remotely. So I think the way I see it is, it's a gateway for the entry into technology industry. Also, it's a very important function in a software delivery process, because unless until the QA gives an approval, sign off, nothing can make it into production. So it's an important role.
And I think I just wanted to build on what Chaya was saying, is every industry needs to use an application or system. It doesn't mean that they own the application or system, but they need to use it, right? So they need to take what we call an off-the-shelf system and make sure it's going to fit their business process. That's what you're testing, right? So you don't need, you're not, you can go work for the Googles of the world, but you're not working for Googles. You're working for lots of different companies that are just using the software that's been available, right? So then you need to sort of do the settings differently and those kind of things, so that's where this comes. And that's why there's so many jobs around in different areas, right? And that's where, like to Chaya's point again, it's a gateway for you to get in, and you don't need to know their business. They're going to teach you their business. And then now they've basically invested so much time and knowledge in you. That's your gateway to then stay there longer, right? And fill that need that they have. And she's right on the point. It just is a gateway for you for technology when maybe you're a little hesitant for technology,
All right, great. Another really good question that I wanted to get to was, what are some just common job titles in this field? What are you going to look for when you want to apply for a QA job? How do you know?
Well, it was interesting because when I was doing my research, I typed in, QA testing, and believe it or not, there were so many jobs that came up, right? And then I started looking at all of them, and most of the postings look the same, right? They were looking for QA testing. And most of the industry looks like, and Chaya, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Most of them are calling it QA testing or just testing, right? Or just quality testing. Like testing seemed to always be in the title. It didn't matter what was maybe a little bit before that, So don't be scared. But once you start looking at some of them, they were very familiar to me. I saw very common themes across all of them. So me personally, I just put QA testing in and was amazed with the amount of volume that came back. I'm not sure, Chaya, if you've seen other ones or different words to pull up.
No, you're very right, Heather. I mean, even when we see all the positions that we receive, most of them do have that. Even the recruiters look for that keyword testing, especially when it comes to technology. That keyword is used very much, testing keyword. But if you're talking about a QA role in a non-technology field, you hardly see testing as a word in the job description. So you're speaking about technology. I agree. Testing is very commonly used.
Yep.
So besides looking at job boards and LinkedIn, do you have any recommendations for how to best search QA testing jobs?
I can at least say from my perspective, I've been looking, my daughter was looking for an internship. So I've used Indeed and went to Google, and it was great. But the other avenue that I used a lot was in LinkedIn, right? I don't know how people are using it today, but I can tell you that me as a hiring manager, me as helping to get my daughter an internship or anything else, LinkedIn is the place to be. I've had recruiters come after me because they've seen on like my profile different keywords. So what, Chaya was saying, testing. Do you have it somewhere on your thing? Do you have it seeking a job in testing? They're definitely looking. I definitely know that people scroll or troll over LinkedIn. I think that's another great place to go. I mean, for my company, we're posting openings on LinkedIn, so I think LinkedIn, if you haven't spent some time in there to create your own profile, making sure you're connecting with new people, that's the place to go to, because I know that that's another very big tool that's used in our industry to sort of help to find openings and find who's connected to who, and the recruiters that might be looking for openings that they can't find people, they're going to LinkedIn as well. Chai, I don't know, or Meg, if there's any other places you might know as well.
I agree, Heather. I think LinkedIn is a very good source. I'm thinking maybe even job fairs, these days because of the pandemic, they have virtual job fairs, and those could be very helpful, because I know networking has become really challenging in these days, but there are many virtual events. And also LinkedIn has a testers group. You can try to join those groups. You get specifically people who are posting positions, you get notified. I would say job fairs is another thing. Job fair, the virtual job fairs, try to register and join. I mean, I would say networking is the key. I mean, you got to meet people, talk to people, and I say meet even virtually. And tell them that you're looking for something like this, and these are your skills. And Heather, as you rightly said, it's important that your resume reflects what the job description has. So sometimes one person might end up having 10 different variations of the resume. I mean, it's okay to try to fit your resume to the job description. Not a fake resume. I mean, all true to the experience. But there are ways to try to get that traction and attention.
Absolutely. That was a great question, Meg.
All right. So I think, they just said, thank you so much. Your answer. So I had a question too. You mentioned that the skills are transferable, but what I was curious about was if your QA experience is really in one area, like video game testing, and then you want to go get a job over at like Janssen with you, in some places, those skills you would have less of a chance or less of an opportunity applying for that job since you were coming from a totally separate industry. Do you find in QA that you're more transferable just across the board than you might in other tech industries?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of transferable skills, and I think people underestimate the amount of transferable skills they would have, right? And when Chaya was saying about, looking at your resume and critiquing it to that position, especially if you're trying to make a leap from one industry to another, right? Like she talked about, like, this is a gateway to an entry into technology, right? It's also a gateway to be very transferable, right? So me personally, that's when you have to sort of look at what you have on your resume and those skills you have that could be leveraged to another group, right? Good communication skills. I know how to do testing, because you would think a video game needs to still meet the demand of the person that's asking to use the tool, right? I want to pick my person. Here's my different options. Can I go back and change it if I don't want it? No, you can't. You can, whatever they sort of look like. So it's either way, it's still a quality control, right? It just happens to be in a different industry. So you sometimes need to try to craft your resume in a way that those keywords are coming out so that you then are selected to be talked to. Then when you're selected to be spoken to, in HR usually is the one that does that recruiting at first, that's when you need to start saying to them how I might have been in the video game industry doing the qualification for a game, but let me tell you my transferable skills and how I can add value on day one to your organization, so that they then can do that connecting. It's connecting the dots for people that maybe they didn't understand these dots could be connected. So that's where I think it's that power, and Chaya saying to change your resume to make sure it resonates with them and making sure you're connecting the dots for them, you know. And I think there's huge amounts of transferable skills if somebody was in the video game, making sure the video game was successful, as much as if you were working in a healthcare industry or a financial institution or, you know, retail even, right? Like, absolutely, you know, it's still that sometimes the interaction with customers, right? Video game, you need to make sure your customer is satisfied with your game. If not, they're not going to buy it or tell other people to buy it. If you look at retail, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, you want to make sure that people have a good experience to then come back and do it again, right? There's a huge transferable skill right there. You needed to make sure that your customers were satisfied, you know. So there's tons of transferable skills. It's just sometimes sitting down with somebody to do that self-reflecting of, what are my skills that I could try to pull out to make that change, you know? So, but that was a really great question, Meg.
I think we've got time for one more. Finally, are there any pitfalls that you could let us know about ahead of time, or any mistakes or things to avoid ahead of getting into a career like in the testing industry?
I would think that a big watch out maybe is the words I would use, right? Is you need to really go back to, why are you doing this testing, right? You want to make sure you're actively listening to the business partner that's telling you, I want this machine to do this. And making sure you go back and forth. Oh, are you sure you want to pick your avatar in your game one? And that once you pick it, you don't want it to be changed again. Like, you're not going to change your mind through the like, it's sort of just, it's not challenging them. It's really understanding what they're looking for, so that you can make sure that the testing will make sure that that thing will work as they intended it to be, right? Those business partners and the people doing the developing, they don't talk very well. So you're basically an interpreter, right? And you're making sure that that business at the end of the day is going to get this thing that they're going to be like, wow, this is exactly what I wanted. And the developer is just behind the scenes developing. They don't understand the business side. So you're really that interpreter. And that's where that watch out is. I think some people don't take the time to really make sure they understand from the business. So if I heard you correctly, you're looking for this. Okay, great. You can go back again and ask those questions, because the business would rather you make sure you understand before, rather than at the end, you know what I mean? And challenging them. Are you sure you want that? You know, that kind of, you know, and go through those scenarios. I call them like maybe like tabletop exercises, like, help me to understand what you're looking for this to do, because it will really help you in the end. So don't make assumptions. Ask the business, because they're the ones that say whether at the end of the day this thing is successful, because they're the ones that have to live with it after. So that's where I would say my biggest pitfall would be, or my watch out for people.
What about Chaya? Did you want to say anything too about anything that you might recommend for people to avoid or watch out for as they enter a new line in tech?
Well, I think Heather touched on all the great points. Yeah. All I would say is, you know, just be honest and genuine in your experience. That's very important. And also, you know, there's always going to be a breakthrough. People might ask for experienced, you know, professionals in certain fields for job descriptions. We always say, you know, as part of SheTek, some of the conferences we did mention our observations that if there are 5-6 different requirements for a job, women, even though they do not meet one requirement, they don't apply. Whereas men can apply even if they meet one requirement, whether they meet or not. So have that confidence, at least give it a try. I suggest give it a try. And every interview that you go through is a great learning experience. So you don't have to really get the job, but at least learn from the experience. And some, you know, there were times I got a job even without relevant experience, because during the interview, I gave the confidence that, some of the examples I gave from my previous work experience gave the confidence to the interviewer that I can easily learn and execute. So I think it's important to attend, at least give it a try and give that confidence, and do your homework before you go to the interview.
Absolutely. I think, and I think, Meg, we had done a little bit of an interviewing session a little bit ago, a couple months ago, and you do have to do a little homework, right? And it really pays off, So, but yeah, it's that confidence level. And again, no job is don't wait for you to be 100% qualified for something. Because I think one of those questions was, from somebody like, oh, I have this whole testing thing, but should I go and learn another software to have that confidence? I'm telling you right now, you have the confidence. Don't waste your time to go learn another software that company might not even use, right? So throw your name in the hat. You know what I mean? Be confident that you do have all these things. You do have all these qualifications, and sometimes you're not going to get the jobs, and it's okay. And it's not saying that you're not qualified, So, just keep putting your name out there, just keep doing it, and take something that you've learned from it. Maybe I needed to prepare better. Maybe I need a better answer to the question that they have, any of those kind of things. Or maybe they might know somebody that they could recommend you for a different job, always try to make those new connections, So, but definitely women, it'll never be 100%. And if you wait for that, you're missing a lot of opportunities, definitely.
That's true of everything too, not just our career.
It is. Unfortunately, yes.
Seize the day.
Yes, seize the day.
It's not a perfect world.
All right, so I haven't gotten any more questions for a few minutes now, but everybody, if you come up with more questions about QA careers, come stop by the SheTek community. Heather is a member. You can always ask, post a question. We'll get you an answer.
Yep, absolutely. And I hope with maybe a little time back in your calendars, you're all going to go to your LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to accept. If you told me what you learned from my talk today, I will happily accept you. So there's my ask to all of you. Start your networking now.
All right.
Excellent.
I'd like to take a moment right now to invite everyone here today to join us in the SheTek Power community. You'll find us at shetek.net, and the membership is free. The SheTek mission is, again, to increase the number of women allies in the tech staffing pipeline. We do this through engaging, empowering, and employing women and allies like you. Engage with us in our community's active discussion board, where we post new topics to discuss things that are relevant to you in your career. You can connect with the top women in tech around the country and in the tri-state area, learn from them, and then share those learnings with others. We have discussions and links to blogs, all kinds of exciting things over there. You can empower yourself with our resources, items to help you increase your job readiness, your job search, and your tech-focused soft skills over in our resources library. Log into SheTek and click that resources link at the top of the community page, and you'll start your learning journey. Finally, you can get employed using the SheTek Community Careers page. Some of the opportunities that I've posted this month include QA tester job, a role for a QA analyst, a fully remote UI UX developer opportunity, and more. From highly skilled roles to entry positions suited for us who are just starting that career journey, we've got a position for everyone. Come find your next job. Thank you so much for, oh, and one more thing, I don't want to forget, you can register now. We have it posted. I made our post attendee URL, our SheTek 2021 annual conference link. We just announced this yesterday for the first time. This is going to be running on October 26th and 27th from 1 to 5:30 p.m. I hope that you can all join us. Check out that website after you leave us today. You can register right on that page. There's a button there. We're going to have some great speakers. It's very exciting. You'll hear a lot more from us about that. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. And thank you again to our guest, Heather Reilly of Janssen, and to Chaya of SheTek. Stay plugged into the outlet, join us, and follow us on social media for all our updates. And thank you all again.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks, Heather, for your time and for the beautiful session. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. It was amazing to talk to some new women and be challenged even with the conversation. So I really valued it as well. And I look forward to the conference. I'll be coming to it. I'm going to go register right now, Meg. Thanks.
There it is.
Thank you.
Well, excited. So make sure you stop by and register, everybody. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.